What is up, people? Welcome to the Ther-I-P show, the show where we put everyone's favorite characters and IP on the sofa to figure out the best way to move forward for them with the hopes that everyone will love these characters as much as we do. This is episode 3, but before I introduce my guest and the IP we're going to chat about, please just take a quick second to smash that like button and go ahead and subscribe to the Grown A Geeks channel. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our fearless leader, Sam. Sam, how are you today?
Doing good, man. Back and happy to get back here and find out who we got on the couch and what we can do to move
And
forward.
yeah. Sorry, I got my counselor voice on right now.
Yeah, very
Um,
soothing, very calming and comforting.
but as you can see from the title of the show, and I'll just drop this here now, we're going to be discussing Wonder Woman, the classic DC character, part of the what's considered to be the Holy Trinity. Sam has a very small representation of Wonder Woman on his shirt right now, but I
She's
mean, I think
also
it's safe to say
like
the
right
greatest
there.
female superhero of all time. Um, Probably the most popular superhero of all time. And, I think even with like things with the DCEU and figuring out how that's going to go and conversations we've had about, you know, what is the public's, uh, what is the representation that the public kind of connects with the most. I would just be interested to go beyond that and kind of hear like what your thoughts and experience with the Wonder Woman character has been in the past and kind of, what your experience has been, why you like this character so much.
Um, well, firstly, as you mentioned, she is part of the DC Trinity, and um, she is the female representation of strength and heroism. Um, and for a very long time was one of the few standalone heroes. Um, she's been right up there. She's a big gun, so she's not just the female character. She
Right.
stands out as like a legitimate hero who can go toe to toe with the best of them.
Right. She
And
ain't Lois Lane.
right, and I don't know. Primary connection, of course, was like as an elder geek. That is my new phrase now. I'm an elder geek. I'm not old. Just as an elder geek. Of course, I watched the Wonder Woman series with Linda Carter, and um, that was an adaptation from the comic stories that exist. Moving forward, of course, you also had Super Friends, and then there was a nice little gap in between that, and then of course we had Justice League Unlimited, as we've talked about being one of the primary source for DC characters.
For
Um,
sure.
there was not like Batman had his own animated series, Superman had his own animated series. I think a Wonder Woman animated series might have might have done well, especially if it had the same heading that the other two had. You go
Yeah.
past that, of course, you've got comics, and then we have the introduction of Gal Gadot in the DCEU, and that kind of resurfaced interest in the character, and that being one of the better DC movies, um, really reinvigorated the character as a whole. So that's my personal connection. But all of that comes with some interesting points.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't go all the way back to Linda Carter. I know who she is, you know what I mean, as a as a geek anthropologist. I always like to go back and study the elders.
Geek historian.
Yeah, the old works of yesteryear. But
Okay, wait a minute now. You making it sound like you had to go to archaeology, like an expedition and go dig up. Like, wait a minute.
yeah, but
I
it's
gotta
like, you watch documentaries, you can't watch a comic book documentary without it mentioning Wonder Woman,
yeah, yeah,
superhero stuff. She is, I think, the quintessential female superhero. And it is strange because I personally feel like I agree with you. I think like she deserved a standalone cartoon at some point. Like at some point, you know what I mean? Like we haven't seen her on her own, and I think that that kind of ends up hurting the reception of her to the public, right? Because you have a lot of people who, like myself, who wasn't around for Linda Carter. So the first time we saw Wonder Woman on her own wrecking shop was Gal Gadot's film. And people really gravitated to that, and I thought it was a good movie. The first one I thought was a good movie. um I thought that Gadot, even though people thought she wasn't buff enough, I thought she was charming. She got the, oh, I'm experiencing all these things for the first time, like
The
it's just
naivety.
very, yeah, she got that really really down. But also, the action sequences were fire too. And I just felt like, you know, it was my first time meeting a character that I had known for so long. Because even though in Justice League, she doesn't get a lot of stories that are just like her front and center.
I mean, I feel
You know?
like Hawk Girl got more
Yeah, Hawk Girl
recognition.
definitely got more. Like, because the whole like invasion from Themyscira and all that stuff like that. But I definitely think that for the level of importance that she has, not just in DC but to all of comics, the the reverence that she's gotten in terms of what people have created with her outside of comic books, I don't think is on par with like what a character of her caliber deserves personally. And I mean, that just gets into, not to get into the super wokeness of comics, but her being a woman is part of that. There's a lot of that in like comics and IP and pop culture in general, where the impression is female characters don't move the needle, they don't sell books, and people aren't going to come see the movies because they're women and this and that. And if it's a woman, if it's a movie about a woman, you can't make it too like girl powery, or you're going to upset the like dude bros. So um even as important as her character is, she's had to fight, I think, a different battle than Batman and Superman in terms of like winning the public over. And I think, that shows in the fact that like most of the time you either see the three of them together, or you don't really see her at all. Um yeah, so let I mean, I think that transitions into like another point though, where it's just like Wonder Woman and the creators, or the people who have been doing stuff with her, they're not gonna get off scot free, because they also have been doing some things like a little bit wrong too, with how they've handled the character from different perspectives. So let's just hop into that next section where, what do you think are like the major issues with the character, just from your perspective, and then I'll give mine after you go.
So, as we've discussed in detail up to this point, the public perception of a character is based on the most popular portrayal of that character, and
Right.
that's where people are going to form their understanding and, for lack of a better phrase, the general acceptance of a character. And because Wonder Woman has been kind of not necessarily regulated to a side character, she's definitely a supporting lead,
Yeah.
but it's supporting.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that by itself, part of the main issue for Wonder Woman is just a general lack of understanding of the character. I mean, it goes without saying that there's obviously some issue with consistency in the character, but we've seen Batman's origin story numerous times. We've
Right.
seen that rocket land on Earth numerous times.
Right.
Somebody tell me Wonder Woman's origin story. I'll
Right.
wait. Do you know it? Does anybody even know? And
I
so
think like people, it's like one of those things where it's like people know bits and pieces, but everybody knows different bits and pieces because it's been kind of murky. It's like all I know is she was on an island and Steve Trevor showed up in a plane. That's
now,
like the most
and
consistent.
that is and that but see, that is exactly my point, because one of the like people, I would say it's fairly common knowledge to say everyone knows that Wonder Woman is an Amazon.
Hmm.
But what does that mean?
Right.
What is an Amazon? There's not a definitive. We
Like, what is a DC Amazon? Not like, are you making me glom off my knowledge of Greek and Roman mythology to fill in the blank of who Diana is? Like, what is the Amazon culture on Themyscira as told and as is considered canon for
for
DC
DC.
Comics?
Exactly. And so that question, or that lack of understanding for the character, leaves it to be almost open to interpretation. So the
Right.
character can be whatever they need the character to be whenever they need it to be. And as we discussed with Superman, that can kind of lead to a little bit of boredom, because you don't really know, but like, she's always going to win.
Hmm.
The hero trope, like, oh, the hero's going to win in the end, but you don't really know why. Like, what are her powers? Is she magical in nature? Does she actually have superpowers? Would any Amazon who comes from Themyscira be as strong as she is? Is she special? And you need those things. So when we get around to, and we'll go with the most recent movie from DCEU, Patty Jenkins, that is perhaps where most people are going to form their knowledge of Wonder Woman now.
For sure.
And so there again, we just know she's different. Of all the Amazons, she's different. We don't know why
Right.
she's different. They didn't go into a whole lot. But then, of course, you get into the movie and you find out that, like, Ares is actually like her brother. She's, a child of Zeus. And then, of course, as you mentioned, that puts us back into having to rely on our knowledge of Greek and Roman mythology to even understand what that means.
Right.
So, okay, Wonder Woman's a demigod. Being a demigod, does that explain her strength? Is that why she's as strong as Superman? Is she as strong as Superman? Is she the number two in terms of strength? Is she the number three? Is Shazam strong? I mean, there's just nothing that is consistent for the character over the course of her run for us to really have a firm grip on what she can or cannot do.
Right.
Um, I was speaking with my wife about the character, just, in kind of mental preparation for the show. And one of the things my wife pointed out was like, well, can she fly? And I was like, well, that's interesting. It's
Yeah.
funny you say that,
Yeah.
because where does the invisible, like, okay, that goes into her tools. So we now know that she has these bracelets, and if she bangs them together, shit blows up. And that has been worn out already. And that was never something that you saw in the previous shows or in the comics, or something like that. The
Yeah.
bracelets were used primarily to, like,
Deflect
deflect bullets
bullets.
and things
Yeah.
like that. So when we see Wonder Woman holding a shield, are we aiming for a level of realism there? Now, we've seen, like, she still blocks the bullets and that sort of thing, and that to me felt more like fan service to show her doing that.
Yeah.
But having that shield up, having that sword, that's kind of here. It's sometimes she has a sword, sometimes she doesn't. It depends on who's writing it, and not to just trail off and say that. But like Nightwing almost always has those sticks,
Yeah.
So it's like a character's arsenal, their tools, the things that are associated. That lasso, that's a tool. We
Yeah.
know that lasso of truth.
Right. Well, and it's also like here's it, and I think also it kind of goes into this other thing of like I think there have been things done with the character that just don't make sense, and they create these like things where it's like competing things, like going to her weapons, right? Like we talked about this, I think, on the Superman episode, when I was like, with Spider-Man, you know his backstory. It's like this, and this. He swings on the thing. His web sound is thwip every single time he does it. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, it's like we got Wonder Woman, and it's like you have a sword, you have a shield, you have a lasso. Those things don't even make sense in terms of like using them together, like in combat. So like you being a person who can use a sword makes sense because you're an Amazon, and we know that about Amazons. But you having this lasso, like, what does that mean? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that yes, the inconsistency of her power set and choice of weapons has definitely been like one of my biggest kind of issues with getting into the character. Because if I read like different Justice League stories, I don't know what she's gonna like show up with. Like I know what Batman's gonna show up with, like a belt and a plan, and like maybe a car, a boat, or a plane, depending. But
However
it'll
he
be,
needed to get there.
you know what I mean. I know what Superman gonna show up with: big fists, big muscles, flying, super fast, cold breath. You know,
Laser eyes.
there's all these other like big characters where when they show up, you know what you're gonna get. And with Wonder Woman, even in the Patty Jenkins version, it's kind of like you're just like everybody's just going through the years and just plucking like what they like. And every time they do Wonder Woman, whoever's in control just like plucks whatever they like. And they're not worried about like establishing like a structure and a foundation, like a canonical foundation for this character to build on. Because so many times the changes that they've made with Wonder Woman in the past are her skill set, as opposed to like in other comics, it's like you introduce drugs, or they move to a new city, or they get a partner, or it's
Right.
like with Wonder Woman, it's like, ooh, she's got to completely change her whole life around, girl. Like, do we have to?
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
this leads into my other issue. I think Wonder Woman would be a better character if we just all just did away with the Diana Prince secret identity shit. Let's
yeah.
just like, because what does it serve? It's kind of like, well, all superheroes have super secret identities. I mean, Aquaman doesn't, you know what I mean?
Aquaman is a kid. But see, that's there
But like
again
the way
is
they introduce Aquaman in certain
yeah.
instances, it's like introducing Aquaman reveals the existence of like Atlantis, and that opens like our whole world. And there's tellings of Wonder Woman like leaving Themyscira and just being Wonder Woman, and it just being like, yes, I left my home on Themyscira, it's an island where all Amazons, blah blah blah, whoop de whoop, yada yada yada. And I'm a warrior princess. This is how I dress all the time. I'm always ready to beat people's ass. Anybody step to me wrong, they're gonna get like slapped in the face. Like I'm empowering little girls that I see on the street. And then the next time you see Wonder Woman, it's like, shh, nobody can know that I'm actually like a demigod, like princess, and I'm doing all this.
Because I'm gonna sit
You
here
gotta
and dust
figure it
this
out.
statue because that's what I do in my downtime.
Exactly. Like I'm not. I think that like those are the things that I feel prevent me from connecting with the character, because then even if you try to read an old comic book, it's like, okay, now which Wonder Woman is this? Is this the Wonder Woman that doesn't have any powers and she's
Yeah.
just a private detective who knows karate? Because that's a thing that exists, people. If you, if you didn't know
Yeah.
that, like they literally like rewrote the character and just stripped her of all her powers, which is insane. And that
There was
writer
a
actually
whole
admitted that. He came back and admitted like that was the craziest, that was the worst decision he ever made. But
yeah.
for a character that important, it seems like, why would you think you could do that with that character?
Because when we run out of ideas, we have to shake things up and we have to try something different and see what bounces and what works. Because like now in what 2022, you know what I'm saying? Actually, not even I want to say as far back as like it was like 2015, 2016. That was when they started getting into they were doing the whole reboot for DC and stuff like that. And that was when the first time they like really addressed Wonder Woman having been raised on Themyscira. It might be relevant to somebody somewhere that what is her love life like? Oh, well, she was raised on this island of all women. So clearly she would have to be accepted. This is our this is Prince. Oddly, interestingly named Prince.
Say, I
But
heard you talking shit.
right. He was like, what'd you say about Prince? But it was like all of a sudden, here it is. Wonder Woman she's the official at a wedding, and it's a same-sex wedding. And you know what I'm saying? Then all of a sudden it started becoming like, oh, well, is Wonder Woman gay? Well, I mean, she grew up on that island. There's no
Yeah.
men and da 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 da. And so that started becoming a focus, which is ironic considering
How she left the island in the first place.
well, not even how she left the island, but even her initial creation, William Marston, who was a very unique individual in and of himself. But one thing that is very consistent is he was without a doubt a feminist. And the whole idea of the character was for her to be a feminist icon. And William Morrison believed that all human relationships can be broken down into dominance, submission, and compliance. And there are some tellings of the character of Wonder Woman where she is 100% in charge at all times. And they've done a fairly good job. This is probably one of the few things that are consistent. They've done a pretty good job of not ever making her the damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
She's always kind of been powerful.
Yeah.
So she's always kind of been in control. And like you said, for them to use that and be like, okay, well, we got to do something different. So let's take all her powers away from her, make her regular.
Right.
Could she still be Wonder Woman then? And that's the only reason they do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? You had to break Batman's back just to see if he could still be Batman. And
right.
Superman had to go into the chamber and lose his powers to be Clark Kent for a while and see if he could handle that. And of course, what did he do first chance he got? My man said, no, I need my powers back. Hold on.
Right.
So it's I don't know. There's definitely some things that they could do just to add that layer of consistency across the board for the character.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, let's just go into the next section. What are our solutions on how we can get this back on track?
First and foremost, and they've kind of done a decent job. Grant Morrison did a reboot during the rebirth cycle of comics, Wonder Woman Earth One, and they actually spent some time on Themyscira examining what Themyscira is. And kind of like you said, we need to know what an Amazon is according to the DC dictionary. Because are all Amazons inherently as strong as Superman?
Right.
If that's the case.
And if you're expecting me to bring my Greek knowledge, it's like everybody should have one breast. Like I know that for a fact. Because they removed them so they could be better archers.
Yeah.
Like, that's like so.
And there again, you just have to have and Amazons, of course, are specifically, Greek mythology. So it's like I said, you got to have that understanding of Greek mythology. She formed of clay and life was breathed into her from Zeus because her mother Hippolyta, prayed for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to like really get into some of these other people. She's trained to be this warrior. And so when she leaves, we need a better understanding of why she's leaving. And I will give a little credit to the movie that it wasn't just like, oh, this guy is really cute and I'm gonna go hang out with him for a little while. The fascination with Steve Trevor being that was the first time she'd ever seen a man. Okay, that naiveness, that's fine, and it kind of works for that. But she understands that the reason he's there is because of war, and they are bred to fight, and there's no conflict on Paradise Island on Themyscira. So this is what you trained me for. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to go and stop man's war. Where did that ideal come from? Why does she feel it's her responsibility?
Right.
That's the type of thing that they have to examine. And then, of course, if she decides that she's going to leave Themyscira and be, and fight man's war for them, what does that accomplish for her? What does that do for Paradise Island? They
like
just need to have that understanding.
She needed like a lot of people have been very hard on like origin stories and just like so many origin stories. We don't need to, but it's like, yeah, we don't need to see Batman's parents get shot in the alley. We don't need to see him in the cave when all the bats come down and then he's like, we don't need to see that. Yeah, we know what that is. We don't need to see the alien pod crash to Earth and the baby get out and pick up the car. We know what that is. We don't need to see Uncle Ben. You know what I mean? We know that stuff.
Even Flash being struck by lightning,
right?
And
those
those
are the origin stories we're saying. Please, no mas. Wonder Woman has yet to have a true like origin story where we understand like not only who and what she is, but her motivations as well. And so I'm definitely agreeing with you. And I think, as good as that first Wonder Woman movie was, it was a prequel because we had already been introduced to the character and she just like comes out of nowhere and she's, you know what I mean? So we already seeing her with her powers, and I thought she was flying in the Justice League movie, and then like in the original she's not, and then in Wonder Woman she's not, and then she has to learn how to do it in 1984, and it's just like, this don't make sense.
But remember, she has the lasso and she can just ride lightning.
Yeah,
so there's that.
So I guess you don't plan on fighting much crime in California because it don't thunder and lightning.
It don't rain in California.
So I think that would be my second thing to hop in terms of solutions. Like, they need to like figure out what her power set is and what her weapon set is. I'm gonna just go out and say it like super strength, not as strong as Superman.
Yeah.
She I think flight, no invisible plane. You should just be able to fly. Lasso of truth. I don't necessarily need to see like swords and shields and all that stuff like that. Like, unless she's like not invulnerable. Like, if you could just slice her up, like, to me, like, that doesn't make sense. But like, I don't even know that. I don't know. Can you stab Wonder Woman, or do you need like a magical knife to stab Wonder Woman?
Nope, you could absolutely.
Just a regular knife. You just got to be a badass dude to get close.
You got it right. You got to be able to. That's the thing. Because see, the thing is like, and again, this is where that inconsistency comes from. Technically, as a demigod, she's immortal. Immortal does not mean invulnerable.
Right.
And a lot of times, it's you get into the nuances and y'all know I'm all about the nuances because I'm like, no, he's not vulnerable to magic. He's it's like,
we know Sam.
Right.
No,
so
we know Sam.
So it is honestly a thing where it's like, she's immortal. Being immortal does not mean she cannot fall victim to violent death.
Right.
She can die. She can be killed. But on her own devices, she does not age.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of stuff where it's like, I would like to know all that before we leave Themyscira. And I would like her to go into the world like fully recognized Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? Like, right. I'm not trying like, I'm watching her navigate the world as is. I'm not trying to like
Go
watch
on
her
that
also
journey of
navigate.
discovery.
Yeah, like that's two different movies.
Yeah,
Like
the Wonder Woman coming of age story needs to take place on Themyscira.
yes, and that would be
And
a great movie. I think. I don't think like a lot of male comic fans would be able to handle like the Edge of 17, but like with Wonder Woman.
I mean, I'm all
But I would
I'm
enjoy
for it.
that.
I'm
I
for
would
it.
enjoy
I
that a
think
lot.
it would be, you know what I'm saying? And it could just be called like the Amazons or the
Yeah,
Mascara.
yeah.
That, you know what? I think we just pitched the CW pilot. But
And then my other point would be I think that I think that they should do away with the like secret identity. I like Wonder Woman just like because the thing that I like the most about Wonder Woman is her frankness in the face of men and watching the male characters react like who is this woman talking and her just be like I mean can't nobody in here beat my ass so I'm gonna say what I want to say. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that is personally one of my favorite aspects of the character, and I feel like, and maybe I'm putting too much on it because I don't know the Linda Carter one, but Gal Gadot's Diana Prince is
Pointless.
not. It's not. She's not like firm enough, in my opinion. It's like still a little too like I'm. She comes off like Jane in the Disney Tarzan movie, where it's like I'm willing to like learn and be around these apes, but I'm still like wearing these clothes that like don't fit what I'm trying to do. Like she
Right.
doesn't get in, she gets interesting again in that film when she puts on the Wonder Woman costume and they
Right.
fight the battle and everybody's like, "Oh shit, like you're like crazy good." But
Yeah.
like I would have found it much more interesting if she walks into like the meetings in if she just gets off the boat in a Wonder Woman outfit and she got her sword and her shield or whatever and she's like, "I'm here to fight this war, blah 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 blah. You're not gonna like stop me." That's
And
better to
there
me
are
than her like hiding behind a petticoat.
and there of course, as with all things comics, there is a version of that, and
Yeah.
um
But
like
I
for
worry
the
that like making her like this in the film is creating
Wonder
this
Woman
as
all the
canon.
time. Wonder
Yes.
Woman all the time. But even then, like I said, canonically, the Diana Prince story is just so that she is not. It's Wonder Woman is a big gun,
Yeah.
and I don't expect Wonder Woman to show up to foil a bank robbery.
But making Wonder Woman a art curator is like trying to hide a big gun in a very small jacket. Like you need a trench coat, my boy.
Right, right. But I mean, at the same time, it's one of those things where how many people is just like hitting the museum like that, and the people who are hitting the museum like that probably aren't really staying up on they like current superhero events, and therefore would not really be able to put the two together because it's it's almost like there's not really a need for a secret identity in regards to it benefiting her somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole point of Bruce
Right.
Wayne's secret identity is that's where the money comes from.
Yeah.
That's like literally that's the only point because he spends most of his time as Batman and just shows his face as Bruce Wayne when he's required to
Right.
because that's where the money comes from.
Right. Even
Superman,
when he shows his face as Batman, he doing work. Even when he shows his face as Bruce Wayne, he doing work for Batman. He like,
right,
I'm at this gala because I need to talk to this lady about this crime that happened over here. Blue.
right. Or I need to show up here so I can clone this phone and get the information I need.
Right.
With Superman, he shows up as Clark Kent because, as an investigative journalist, it allows him to be wherever he needs to be with no one really like asking a lot of questions about him being there.
Right.
So, if he goes to cover a story in, thinking of like one of the Justice League, Uzbekistan or something like that, where Queen Bee is doing whatever, he can just be there, do the Superman thing, and no one's gonna like put together that, oh, Clark Kent just flew to Uzbekistan
Yeah.
and Superman's there. They're not putting it together. Plus, the journalism angle lets him like be in touch with all types of news and information. Okay, cool.
But
Diana
he's still
Prince
doing
doesn't
that
really
work in service of Superman.
in service of Superman. Diana Prince is just so she ain't got to stop a bank robbery when it's her off day. When there's not a world-threatening event.
Yeah,
She
like I
can
feel
just
like they tried to do
relax.
that. I feel like they tried to do that, like because like magical artifacts come through the museum and and I think they tried to highlight that in Wonder Woman 1984 too,
Yeah.
where it was like the museum artifact is the thing that was like frying everybody's brain and making them or giving them wishes and shit.
And of course, her insight to it, because no one knows she's really like this old lady who's
Right,
been around for all these years and seen this stuff. If they
right.
and honestly, if they were going to do that, then what they should have done, and it's just it would have been something that would have made more sense and it would have been more acceptable. Ultimately, she needed to be someone who had vast wealth and was a collector of all of these things that she knew were problematic. She's collecting these artifacts and locking them away in a vault because that's what
Well, she should have been
knows
like an
she needs to do.
archaeologist. Or
That's
not
what
like
she
not for
needs
that
to
whatever
do.
that is for like pots and not dinosaur bones. I think
Right,
there's
right,
like a cultural anthropologist.
right. I mean, she could
That
have.
makes more sense than just being a
They could have
curator.
done a whole story and used the Indiana Jones angle or the
Exactly.
Uncharted angle, where she's going on these adventures to find these different things. If you want to use
Tomb
the Diana
Raider.
Prince, boom, Tomb Raider with superpowers. I'm with it. I'm here for it. And that would make sense, and that would be the only reason to justify a Diana Prince, to explain why Wonder Woman has this vast wealth. Because I mean, if you've been alive for all this time and you don't have money, what is you? That's why vampires always be rich, because like you've been a Vandal Savage, billionaire. Why? Because he been around and he know how this thing works. So
Exactly.
it's I agree that they could definitely get rid of the Diana Prince. It serves no real function. And I think some of the better stories with her, she is Wonder Woman all the time. And she has a seat at the UN. She's a liaison in some regards to that. You know what I'm saying? She's the person. If you got to speak to the Justice League, you talking to Wonder Woman.
Yeah. And
because Batman not answering your phone call and you're not important enough for Superman to show up, Wonder Woman to stand there. And that's kind of demeaning, but she's also the one that's like, this ain't
but Wonder Woman, but I think also like Wonder Woman is the one who can stand there and do that because she's not American and she's offering like an alternative like warrior. So she's been raised with like a warrior mentality, and if she's there to represent not only Themyscira but also the Justice League, which is essentially a band of warriors, like her perspective is the one that everybody is probably going to be the most behind. She'll probably like, Superman will probably be like, it's a little rough. It was like you're a little tough on him there, Diana, but
they needed to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like seeing a character I wonder what the world would be like if we had just had a decade of everybody just having to watch this woman like stand up to men and tell them what's right, no matter what, because she knows what's right and she's been raised to do the right thing. Like,
there's probably a reason that comic doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, it's like the world's the worst place because people's ego too fragile to like deal with something that would actually like make sense and be entertaining. And it kind of reminds me a lot of like the conversation that happened around like Captain Marvel and like Brie Larson's like attitude, and it's just like, bruh, she's like, why would this character be like humble or nice or any of that stuff when you actually like take a moment and understand who they are and what their background is? Tell me why that character you think which would be nice and worry about like somebody's feelings when like her whole currency is like, can you beat my ass? Because if you can't, shut the fuck up. Like that's what her society is built on.
Right.
And so if she's there
trial by combat.
Right.
Trial by combat.
There saying what she comes from a paradise. So whatever she's saying, she comes from a place where You trying
They've
to
already got it figured out.
yeah, they got it figured out. You trying to get on their level, and you can't beat her ass. So like,
Maybe you should shut up and
maybe
listen.
you should listen.
Hear what she got to say. And truthfully, like, thinking back to the movies, and one of the biggest flaws I feel, and this is probably like, I'm gonna start something right now. Hashtag the Jenkins cut, because I am certain that Patty Jenkins wrote a story that did not revolve around
The
Wonder Woman pining over some cat she just met. And then on top of that, like, realistically, I've always had a problem with the idea of, and this is just me, but I've had a problem with the idea of characters like Steve Trevor and Lois Lane when Superman and Wonder Woman exist. And let me tell you something. Every version of every comic where the two of them get together, that's a power couple. And
Yeah,
I'm not trying to believe that Lois Lane can hold the candle to Wonder Woman. If that's even an option, bro, like, that's an easy decision to make.
because
And
that's like when he was fighting Darkseid, and he was like, "Oh, I can really let loose because you can take it, big boy."
right,
Like that's what he thinking when he sees who he see Wonder
right,
Woman.
you know what I'm saying? And it's like,
Because
and
like
then at the
also
same
it doesn't.
time,
Oh, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
if in 1980, okay, so now in 1984, granted, maybe since Superman had not revealed himself at that time, you know what I'm saying? Like, if this is to be believed in the timeline as set, 1984, Superman had not revealed himself yet, so it wouldn't be until some
I mean,
years
he's a
later.
kid, right?
At
Technically, if
Yeah,
this is
at
the
this
same
point,
universe as
that's what I'm saying.
Superman
Like,
Returns,
well, see, that's the thing. This would
not
have to fall
Superman
canon to
Returns.
DCEU,
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
right? So DCEU, Man of Steel, and yeah, I mean, he would have been a kid at that time, and cryo sleep and that kind of thing. So now he's awake. He's in Smallville, going to school, pulling buses out the lake, that sort of thing. It would be some time before somebody who was worthy came along to like have her attention. So to see this powerful character as she is, the whole thing is she missed her boyfriend.
Right. And the way that
Like,
like
all they had to
I,
do after that was tell her to smile more on top of it. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like, I feel like that's where they went with that.
And I think like the interesting thing is just like the way that I have I guess the Wonder Woman stories and movies that I've liked, like the animated series and stuff like that, she does not strike me as somebody who would like she had never seen a man before, but she knew what a man was. Like I feel like their society would have been very like sex positive, and they would have been like, yeah, this is it, this is what you do, blah blah blah. And I definitely see her. I would prefer Wonder Woman who was less like, oh my god, that was like such an emotional and amazing experience, to just being like, well, okay, check that off the list.
Right. Like, oh, so
Thank
that's how that
you.
works. Cool.
I've been curious about this since I read about them in my mother's scroll. Thank you. And then
And
just move on and live her life.
there are, again,
Maybe that's
some
me being
story
a hater.
arcs. There are some story arcs where she really does not have that same emotional connection to
Hmm.
Steve Trevor. That is essentially her best friend with benefits,
Right.
because she is very much like, I don't belong to you.
Yeah.
We cool, call me, but
Right.
I got things I'm finna go do. So don't wait up, because you're gonna die one day, and I'm
And your
not.
pelvis is not strong enough.
Come on, these legs. What you trying to do? I would say, just for some my opinion, um, not really required reading, but I think like some of the better stories, for comic readers who may want to kind of get a grasp on the character and what's what. DC Rebirth, when they did the whole Rebirth, Wonder Woman Year One, phenomenal, phenomenal story. And it's like like I said, it kind of gives a very clear understanding of Paradise Island, Steve Trevor, her travel to the world. That would have been the story to adapt. Um, and then I would say Wonder Woman versus Cheetah, because that's one of the really big storylines. And if you want to have a better understanding of the character Cheetah, first you have to know that there's been more than one and da 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 da. But so if you get in and you Wonder Woman versus Cheetah, that's a good story. And then just her character as it applies to some other stories. When you take Kingdom Come,
Mhm.
which could be kind of viewed as a Superman story, but Wonder Woman is a very big player in that storyline. Um, Now that one's an Elseworld's tale, so
Yeah, but
grain of salt.
it's a very good comic. It's like one of the most beautifully drawn. I have it back here, I think.
I have it right there. That's like one of my Kingdom Come is like, look, Kingdom Come is my jam. Like, do y'all
I
see?
read it.
That's the one.
I read
That
Kingdom
is.
Come. There was a kid on my school bus growing up who had he just got every single comic, and I read this like issue by issue. Like he got the issues as they were like
Mm,
coming out.
ooh,
Yeah,
now that's
it's
hot.
crazy. Yeah.
And yeah, just in terms of like artwork and things like that, but the character of Wonder Woman and how she stands for that, and I'm trying to remember the storyline that falls with Maxwell Lord. That's actually another really good story because we get to see Wonder Woman as the fighter that she is, and she recognizes like, nope, this dude got to die, and kills him, and it sets off a whole crazy chain of events that the Justice League has to deal with. So um, it escapes me right now which series that was. I think that might actually be under Justice League,
Yeah,
but
put it in the comments under the video when I post it, and then people
I
can
will find that.
do that. All right, cool. So we got a nice little, 45-minute sesh. Two dudes talking about what a woman should do with her life. Seems to get a lot of views on the internet these days. We'll see. Hopefully, we ain't do it like they do.
I really would like to think that we did not mansplain the character, but maybe mansplain the problems men have made with the character.
Yes.
That's
But
that's
ladies,
the
if we got
perspective.
anything wrong, ladies, if we got anything wrong, please let us know in the chat.
Please let us
We'll
know.
we'll uh we'll discuss it in on the DCEU episode that we do. And we'll just do like a nice little disclaimer at the beginning, apologizing for everything we got wrong. Dudes, not really interested in in
Yeah,
what you, yeah.
it'll be all right.
Unless you agree with us, then you can leave those comments. Like, subscribe, share. Um, this has been another great episode. Sam, you got anything you want to drop? You want to tell anybody?
Just be sure to check us out on our Facebook group. You can join us there. If you scan the QR code above me, that'll give you links to all of our content. You can find our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube. Everything is there. Join us, be a part of the group, and interact with us. Make sure to leave comments and like the videos. There's a
Yes.
whole sports section for, because people who wear jerseys, that's cosplay. So come and be a geek with us.
Yeah, this hat is cosplay too.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't really have anything because this is mostly the show that I do, but I'll be on some other stuff probably soon. I'll be on some of the I'll probably try to do the Batman review. I might try to go see that Friday in theaters with like three masks on. So
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get out to I'm gonna get out to the Batman first chance I get. It's got to
all
be a
right.
Regal theater though, so it's like
Yeah.
it's not a close one.
Yeah. That's not a plug for Regal Theaters unless y'all want to sponsor us. And on
In
that
which case, it became a sudden plug.
yeah, yeah, we'll edit it out for you. But in that note, Sam, for Growing Up Geeks, I've been Jeff. This has been episode 3, Ther-I-P. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.